Hello and welcome. We're going to rebuild this Bosch MagDyno. I'm only going to rebuild the top portion, which is the generator. But the MagDyno has the Magneto on the bottom and the generator on top. So it's two functions. And I'm going to show you how to take it apart, and I'm going to show you how to put it back together. This came out of a 1928 R52. So you have to know which way the MagDyno turns. Now, if you have an R12, it's basically the same MagDyno, but it's a D2B. This is a D2A. A lot of times you can look at the LS here. L typically means left and R typically means right, but you really can't trust that, okay? Nor can you really trust there's a arrow that way, which means this rotates in this direction counterclockwise. So that's pointing that way. And again, you can get different plates with arrows pointing in both directions. So you really have to turn the motor over to see which way it's turning to really be sure. I know this is a left turning, the arrow's right, the L here is right. So I know this is left. I also know my R12 is a right. So that's an RS, I think it was an RS something. But again, in the R12 has a gear up here for a chain, not a gear for a for gear drive. So the R12 is chain driven, this is gear driven. So it's a little bit different, but basically it's the same unit. So this is the MagDyno. If you've never taken one of these apart, you will see you have the gear, or either this type of gear or a chain gear, and you have this spring-loaded plate. And the spring-loaded plate is what pushes up against the block and seals it. These always leak. This spring is not that great, and it always leaks, and oil runs out the block and down the side of the block. Various ways of doing it. Here I did machine this plate a little bit. There's sometimes a groove, sometimes not. I did put an O-ring in here. You might be able to see that O-ring sitting here. So I did put an O-ring down there, and I will be putting some silicone in when I put it together. That's for a later video. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to explain to you a little bit of how this works. Inside here, actually cast into the aluminum, is a magnet, okay? And that's a permanent magnet cast into there. And then what they did was they came up with these two little outside magnets, okay, that, and you'll see them here that are bolted on. And those are like booster magnets, if you will, okay? And they actually boost the magnetic field. Then you have, obviously, your ignition wires. And so we're going to take the ignition wires off first, and I'll explain to you how those work. So there's just one screw per side. And do not lose this screw because it is a special screw. Okay, and I will show you that. If you look at that, you will see that it has a pretty good taper on it right there. That's a special screw. Now you pull this out, and what you'll see, and don't pull it too hard, pull it easy, okay? What you'll see is you'll see a gasket here, but there's a brush here, okay? When you put the wire in, you have to take this brush out, and there's a screw there, a vampire tap, that goes into the wire. I'll show that later on, because I'm going to be replacing these torn rubbers. So I'm going to have to take this coal out, and I'm going to have to take the wire out. So I will show that to you. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get into the actual back half of this. And I'm going to take the bottom off before I take the top off. And I'm going to show you what's happening in the bottom first. So this is a pretty complicated little unit. Okay? This cap back here, you rotate this arm off, okay, and the cap pops off, and what you'll see in the cap is this little spring. So what happens is this spring rides on the end of this bolt, and when you hit the key off, or you hit your kill switch, it grounds out, this and grounds out the magneto, and that's what turns your ignition off, is ground coming through here. So you got to look at this and see if that divot is too big. And in this case, divot's getting there, but it's still okay. But it's got a pretty good divot in it. Normally these come round, so this one's worn, but not bad. So that's okay. That'll go back on. Then you look at this, and in here, I'm going to zoom in the camera here a little bit so you can see. So if you look here, this is a pretty complicated little unit. Okay. So what you have is you have your points over here, and you can see your points there. Okay, so your points are here, and you see your rubbing block is over here. Okay, so the rubbing block rubs, it hits a bump, and I'm going to explain that to you, pushes open the points, and it fires. Furthermore, somewhere in here, down here, you're going to see an L. Hopefully you can see that. And that's a left turning. Remember we spoke about how these can turn left or right. So that is a left turning plate, or breaker plate, they typically call it. So you have your points here, and you adjust it with these, right? Then you have your rubbing block over here. So and you say, well, hang on, James. This turns inside. So if you look, that actually turns. This breaker plate turns inside this collar. And I'm going to explain that to you. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull this collar off. Okay, I'm going to pull it, and these can be tough. And you just got to do not muscle these. Wiggle them, be easy, be careful, and it'll come off. So that the outside collar came off, which I'm okay with. And this is a spring plate. That's what this is. And what this has is a spring down here. Very, 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 I'm not going to lose it. Don't lose that. Very, very, very stiff spring in here. Okay? The outside collar is what helps bring the ignition back to full advance after you pull the retard lever. The R12 and several others also have a spring that helps bring it back to full advance. Now this little divot here rides in a notch there. So that's how that turns. So it rides in there, and it turns this timing collar. So let's take this off, and we will look at the spring collar and the timing collar together. And what you will see here in the timing collar is there are two steel inserts that in this case are 180 degrees apart. So there is a steel insert, and it actually creates a flat area. So when the points rubbing block comes around, it hits the flat area, opens the points, and actually fires the plug. So these are 180 degrees apart, and because it's a two-cylinder, there are two flats. It is important to note here that this timing ring is a standard wear item. Those two flats that you see in the ring wear over time and can cause differential timing. So it is important that if you have differential timing, you're likely going to have to replace this ring. So I've condemned my ring. So my ring is going to get a new, I'm going to get a new ring. And now we get into the plate. So here's our plate. So let's take that off, shall we? And a lot of times, obviously I've had it off before. So a lot of times you have to use, what I like to do is use a little bit of to take it off, an impact, and that will let you take this off very, very easy. Without struggling, without hurting anything. And it's very, believe it or not, the impact is actually easier on it. So now what you see here is this is not a normal bolt. You can see this has a taper on it. This is a very, very, very special bolt. Okay? And you have to have the right bolt because this taper fits in a taper over here on the plate. So I'm going to put my bolt over there. And here you'll see, okay, you can probably see that taper in here. So that fits there. And you'll also see here where here's the plate, and if I push here, you'll see how the points open. Okay, and we'll get into adjusting points as we're putting it back together. You'll also be able to see the L for left turning. Okay, so there is the actual breaker plate. Now, since this turns in here like this, in order to make sure that you have ground, I'm going to show you something else that's very interesting. So if I turn this over, here is another coil on this side, and that it's spring loaded. Maybe you can hear that, and that rubs on this part right here. So as this turns, it rubs, and it gives continuity to that side of the points plate, of the contact plate. So this is a very interesting unit. Now you'll also see here, I hope you can see it, there's actually a stamped in keyway over here. And that keyway lines up obviously to a keyway slot in there. So this is a complicated little system here. And if you have any questions on this here, you want to replace it. Again, BMZ has it. I'm getting new ones. I'm going to show you once I get all of the parts. I'm going to show you how to replace that. But it's really quite easy. Okay. I'm also going to be replacing and readjusting the points. Okay. You can get BMZ also has new points. So I'm going to be putting new points in. And I'm going to be readjusting everything when I get all the new parts. So that's that. I typically like to make sure I put my screw together with it, and I store that separately on the side. So pretty much that is everything we can touch on the outside of the Magneto. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the back of the generator housing off. So I'm going to turn it around so you can see that. There are two contacts here, okay, and two wires come in. One comes from the battery, and then one goes up to the headlight switch. So this one comes from the battery, typically. This one goes to the headlight switch, okay? So that way it comes in and out, and these are joined, okay? There's a gang bus under here. So these are joined. So I'm going to pull this off, okay? And yes, these were loose, so just finger tightened them before. And I have been in here replacing some of the wires already, so you'll see some of that. So you pull this off. If I loosened it. So there you go. And what you'll see is that there's a wire right here that I have replaced in the past, this blue wire, that goes to the gang bus up here. So inside it goes there, I'll show you that. And then it goes to, this is still the mechanical regulator, and it goes here. So I'm going to loosen that, take that bolt off, hold everything. Kind of need 3 hands for this. Okay, and bring that out. Fine, that came out, that came out. What you'll see is that's where it goes, and this is the gang bus in here. And that's where those two wires coming in, 1, 2, are joined together to this. And this is the output from the generator. So that's that. We're going to put this aside. Don't need it anymore for now. And now we're into here. So this is the mechanical regulator. That bad boy. And I say bad boy because most of them are bad. They actually are. This one, not even close. Wasn't working right, wasn't doing the right thing, and we are replacing it with a very nice electronic regulator, and we'll be getting into that. So the first thing we want to do is take this all apart, and I'll explain everything to you. So let's loosen. Now, okay, there's 2 sides to this. There's 4 screws. These are ganged. These 2 are ganged together, and these 2 are ganged together. So if I take my continuity gauge, and just to prove it, I go there. If I go, there you go, right? There, that's ganged. There, ganged. Okay? So these 2 are ganged together. Okay? So you gotta understand that. So that's that. So now let's take this apart. Okay, unscrew this, and as you can see by that nice red wire, I've already been in here doing some work, but I want to put it all back together so I could make the video. So, unscrew this. I always color code everything, but in this case it really doesn't matter because I'm changing everything anyway, so the color coding really doesn't matter in this case. So let's take all these wires out, and the original wires will have these nice crimped on ends. So let's take them out. Okay, take them all off. Take my new wire off, take that off. So just take them all off, it doesn't matter anyway, because we're going to be replacing everything anyway. So take it all off like that. So next we're going to actually take the old voltage regulator off. There's 2 bolts on the side here. You can see them, 1, 2. 2 bolts on the side here that you can take off. Okay, so take these 2 bolts off, here and here. A lot of times I like to use a tool like this that you can actually, has a little spring loaded in it, and this way you don't lose them. So if I'm doing this in the motorcycle, I did change the regulator in the motorcycle, I would do like that, and now you're not going to lose the screw. It is one of the best inventions, especially as you're getting older, and not as, maybe a little bit more shaky, and bam, that comes right off like that. Okay, so I love these holders. Buy one, it's worth it. So now we have 2 grounds that come down in here, and as you'll see, the grounds actually come down onto the actual aluminum body. So there's a screw here. So I'm going to loosen that screw and pull that screw out. Obviously it should be a little bit tighter than that, but again, I've been in here and this is just for teaching purposes. Now I won't even get into explaining this. The book from Doug Rinkies does a great job explaining these, how they work, and why you never want to ever have one of these, and why you want to do electric regulator. So now we got all these wires sticking out here. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is take this back cover off. I am not going to take the gear off, and I'm not going to take the front cover off because I'm not changing the Magneto. I'm not doing anything with the Magneto. So I'm just going to take the rear cover off. Again, I have a missing bolt, and there's a reason for that. So excuse me on that one. So I'm just going to loosen these bolts all up a little bit. Okay, loosen them up. Loosen this guy up top. So there's 1 up top. There's 3 flat blades, and then there's this guy. And obviously that was loose because I had this off. So there is your swinging piece to hold on the outside cover, and that's kind of very nice. So that goes over here. So now let's take this off. So because I don't want to drop anything down, any holes, I will use my holder here, take all of these off. Okay, this one. Okay, I'll do it by hand. Okay, and then last but not least, this little guy up top. You'll see this little guy up top here. Let's take him off. Fine, came right out. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit for us here, so we can see everything. Okay, so now got all the bolts off, got my little swinger, what I want to call a swinger off, got all that off. Now it's time to pull the back cover off. A lot of times with something like this, you can just tap a couple times right there, and it just starts coming right off. So that's a good way of doing it, and boom, the back cover came right off. Now, what you noticed, I forgot to take the coals out of this side. So we're going to get into that, but I forgot to take the brushes out. Okay? And I'll show you how to put the brushes back in. So there are two types of brushes. There are these types without the wire on them, and there's these other types that have the wire on them. Okay, this is from my R12. So my R12 had the one with the wire on it, connected to it, and my R52 has the ones without the wire. After looking at it, the ones with the wire are the same size as the ones without. So the only ones I can get is with the wire, so I will take the wire off and grind it down a little bit, sand it down a little bit so it's nice and flat. So I'm gonna get new ones of those. But those are the coals. I'll explain to you how they work right now. So if you look in here, this is the type without the wire. You'll see how this side has the wire up here. So this side is isolated from ground. This side is grounded. Let's test that, shall we? Don't trust me, let's test it. So if I go like this, turn on my tester, I go ground to this side. Where is it here? There you go. Fine. Ground to this side, and then ground. Let's just get a good ground here. There you go. And ground to this side, nothing, but ground to this bolt, believe it or not. There you go. But to the actual, where the actual brush sits, nothing. So this is isolated from ground, all right, except for the bolt, which is also isolated from ground. You got to check this, because this could be one reason why your generator is not working. If something has made a connection to ground because it got hot or whatever, that's a problem. I did not like the way this wire looked when I took this all apart the first time. I did not like the way this wire looked. In fact, it was bent over this corner quite roughly and was starting to chafe. And I figured maybe this wire was chafing against the edge. So I had put a new wire in here just to make sure that I have good connection with no chafing on the edge at all. Made it a little bit longer too. So, so that's the way that works. Now, of course, you have your springs, and I will show you how to put the brushes back in as we're assembling. And there's a way to do it through these plates. So I'm going to take so that's your back cover. And you'll see also here, this is done right. Since it's left, this has a slot. I'm going to explain that to you. And this one has a little piece of wire in there that's been peened over. So you cannot use this, you can only use that. So what happens is this pin fits down into that slot, and that's your limiter. That's your limiter on how much advance you can have. Full advance, full retard. Full advance, full retard. So you're always going back. So when you're in running mode, you're, full retard, full advance. I'm going the opposite way. So full retard, full advance. So when you're running, you're always fully advanced because it's against a hard stop. That's important to note, that when you set this back up and you're playing with the actual cable adjustment, that you're getting full advanced. It's snapping all the way back and it's coming back all the way. You have to check that, because if it's not, you're not going to get that full advance. And that's what that is doing down there. That's how that works. So we're going to put the plate aside. Okay, now with the plate aside, we are going to start looking at this a little more. Okay, let me take these two plates off that I didn't earlier, that I should have earlier, quite honestly. Should take these off, and I should have taken the brushes out the correct way, but I didn't. So excuse me on that. So take these bolts out, and these access panels up top, this is your brush access panels for the generator. Okay, so you access the brushes for the generator through these little side panels. Now 9 times out of 10, the gaskets are ripped. You can get new gaskets from BMZ. So there you go. So the panels are off. So if you look here, you'll see the panels are off. Now watch out, if you turn it over, that generator will fall on the ground. Okay? So now, like I said earlier, we're not changing this, but I will explain to you how this all works. So now the generator should lift straight out. Okay? And the generator component is very easy. It's got a front ball bearing, got a back ball bearing. And if you look in the cover, you'll see the other side of the ball bearing. It sits here like that. There you go. So there's the other sides of those ball bearings, the race side, and here's the ball side. So at this point, I found out that my armature was bad, and that will be discussed a little bit later in this video. But I will go into the coil and a little bit of discussion on that before I talk about the armature again. So the coil is mounted in here. You'll see there's a ground mount. So you might ask, why are there 4 wires coming out of here? Why are there so many wires? The coil is only really 2 wires, right? Well, there's so many wires because 2 are for the resistor. When you're using the mechanical regulator, you need to run a resistor. When you're using the electronic regulator, you do not need the resistor, nor do you want it. It will screw up the electronic regulator. You do not want the resistor wires. So if your coil is fine and you want to go electronic regulator, you can simply just disconnect the resistor wires and have at it. I don't like doing that. It's so easy to get in here. BMZ makes a special coil that's just made for the electronic regulator that has no resistor. It's a brand new coil. It's, better technology. So if I'm going to do anything and I'm getting in here and doing this, I'm going to change that coil. Okay, I believe my coil is bad. In fact, I'm quite sure of it, but I'm still going to come in here and change that. So there, pulled that ground wire off. There we go. So now I've got 4 wires sticking up that's coming out of that coil. Now you can come and you can remove these 2. This is where I had to, in my case and in a lot of cases, somebody had put red Loctite on these 2. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of red Loctite. I understand why they did it. I am not a fan of it. As you'll see, these 2 dots here, actually those dots are for the pins, but there were other punch marks. You can stake these. I'm probably going to put purple Loctite back here, which is just a really, really light Loctite, and then I'm going to stake them. Red Loctite on these is, like I said, I had to drill one out. And so I borrowed one from the back cover for this video. But, don't put red Loctite up here, people. Okay? And I'm getting new ones from BMZ. So when they come, I'll have them. These are strange. I do believe they're 5.5 millimeter. So that's a strange size. It's not 6, it's 5.5 millimeter. So that's a strange size. Just remember that. So then pull that off, and there's 2 dowels there. So you got to pull that down. And sometimes it takes a good yank to pull it down. And there is our coil. I always mark it forward because I always want to put it back the same way. It doesn't really matter, but I like to do that. And so if I push that out, here's the mount for the coil. Okay, so you'll see that. Put that aside, mark it front to rear, and here is your actual coil. Doesn't look bad, but it's 6 ohms and it should be 2. So I'm pretty sure it's not good. But again, having an upgraded one, I'm getting parts anyway from BMZ. So, having an upgraded one is not a bad story. So that's that. Okay, so all the new parts have arrived. Here we're going to, this is the new field coil for the generator. You will see it only has 2 wires. The original has 4 wires. It's sitting right here. The original has 4 wires, and the 4 wires are 2 for the field coil and 2 for the resistor. We don't need a resistor with an electronic regulator, so we have this. I always get all new components, and BMZ has great components, so they have new screws for up here. One of them was locked up because somebody put red Loctite on this. Not good. So let's check the field coil, shall we? It is supposed to be somewhere around 3 ohms, 2.8, 3, somewhere in that area. So let's check that and let's see what it is. Here's my handy dandy meter. Put it on here. And let's see, shall we? It measured earlier at 3.1. Here it's measuring at 3, there you go, 3.1, which is okay. 3.0, 3.1, that's fine. Okay? A little bit high, but depends on how they did the wrapping in this. Okay? But that's fine. 3 ohms is good. So when you put this in here, you have to make sure that you don't cut the corners. Okay, it's a tight fit. And so you just gotta wiggle it. You gotta make sure that there you go. And you gotta make sure it comes all the way through, because there are 2 pins here. Okay, and it goes in here this way, because see I have the arrow forward, right? And we're probably gonna have to trim these, and that's fine. So we got that. So we put this in here now, and you gotta push it because it doesn't want to line up perfectly. So it lines up now here, but it's not on the pins. So I've got it where I can put the screws in, but it's not lined up on the pins. So I'm just gonna tighten this down a little bit to line it up for the pins. Just gotta make sure that the pins line up. So I'm gonna tighten this down a little bit and suck it up to the top. This is why you do put some blue Loctite on the threads. Once it's in there, you do put some blue Loctite on the thread, so fine. I'm not gonna put a lot of pressure on, I'm just walking it front to back, and then I'm gonna loosen it. It got very snug, not tight, very snug. I'm gonna loosen it and make sure that it's engaging on the pins. There's a pin here and a pin there, and it's not engaging on the pins. It fell right down. So we have to keep doing that to make sure that she's gonna engage on the pins. And once we know we got it engaged on the pins, we can tighten it. Okay, I did hook the pins there. I can feel that. And I'm feeling up through here now to see that it's actually getting pulled up. And it is getting pulled up, which is great. I'm not putting not putting a lot of pressure on it. And boy, and that went tight right there. I mean, that went firm. That went firm. That went firm. So I do believe we are fully up. Let's look at that. It looks, you can see up there, it looks like it's fully up. Let's get a light in there. It looks like it's fully up to the top, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off, because if the pins are engaged, it usually does not pop down. And you can see how it is here. So let's see if the pins are fully engaged. I'll hold it up for a little bit. And it does fall down, but I can tell the pins are engaged. Okay? The pins are definitely 100% engaged, and it's up top. So that's good. So, like I said, a lot of people put a little bit of Loctite here. There was a little bit of red Loctite when I pulled it off. So I'm just going to put a drop of blue right there, just because. Okay? Shake this up a little bit. You always want to shake your Loctite up. And I'm just going to put a drop right there. Okay? Not a big deal. Okay? I'm going to put this back up there. Okay, line the pins up. I can feel the pins. That's good. I can tell it's not all the way up, but I can feel the pins. There we go. Okay, now pull it up again. And I'm not going to Loctite these yet, these screws yet. I'm not Loctiting the screws yet until I am happy that we are completely up. So I'm just going to go back and forth like this, nice and easy. Then I will verify that is complete. Now I'll take one out. Okay. I'm going to verify that we're completely up. Yes, it is. I can look down there and I can see it's completely seated. Now I will put the Loctite on. And you don't need that much. It comes out pretty quick from a new tube. Don't need that much. But all that's doing is stopping that from potentially falling down, which would get into the armature and would be not good. It would not be very good. Okay. A smidge of Loctite here. People put way too much Loctite on. Don't be one of those people who puts a ton of Loctite or uses red when they shouldn't. Okay, look back down in there. That looks like it's all the way up. It looks like it's fully seated and everything looks good. The big test is you put your armature in and does it go in all the way? And does it turn? There you go. And then you put your rear on and make sure it goes in there and it turns. If it does, nothing's hitting. So fine, I put that on there like that. Just hold it up there like that for now. And I turn it and everything is happy. And there is nothing hits, nothing's rubbing. So we are fine. So I am going to do a final tighten here. Okay, good. Good. That is tight. Put the Loctite away. And so now we are ready for the next. So now we have, let me take this out. So now we have the field coil up there, on there, blue Loctite. Everything's fine. I had cleaned this out in here, just wiped it out. So everything is good there. So as it turns out, my armature was bad. And so I have sent this out and I have had it rewrapped. Now, when I did the ohm values on the segments, it came back with like a 0.1 of an ohm, and that's really low. So after looking into it some more, a friend of mine told me that on these, if you do a 180 ohm and it comes out to be 180 across here and here, it comes out to be 0.1 something really low, it's likely that something is shorted. So I probably had some shorted wires in here, and even though they were all the same 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, they're all going through the same short. So he said have it rewrapped, so I had this rewrapped, and now I'm going to be putting on new bearings. Okay, front and rear with the right parts and pieces. So if you have any misgivings about doing this, what I would do is if you send your armature out, I would just pretty much send the bearings out with the armature and have them press them on for you. Okay, so if you have any misgivings about doing this, just have the people who are wrapping the armature pay a little bit extra money, have them press new bearings on, and that's that. I probably would have done the same thing, would have saved me some time, but so that's what I'm going to do next. So I have pressed the bearings on. I have pressed the dust shields, or in this case grease shields on, so when you grease these bearings the grease cannot get out. I have pressed this on and I have put the pin in, please make sure, because one side of this hole, if you're going to do this, one side of this hole is larger than the other one, and the pin is tapered. So what you have to do is figure out what side of the hole is bigger on the gear part, on the shaft part, and on the pin itself. Then you press it in that way. So that's what I did. So everything's ready here. So then I put this into the case. I put the back portion up, and it was a bit loose this way. I'd rather it be loose than tight, because tight is very hard to deal with, but it's a bit loose in this direction. Okay, and so what there is you have the cup right here that goes in here, and that is what this bearing rides on, like that. Okay, we can see that's really nice, and you can also see where the grease is captured there, so that works out quite well. So here's the cup. So took everything apart, heated this up to about 200-250 degrees with a heat gun, then just basically gently tapped it, and the bearing just came straight out. Now what I did, and if you see my other videos, you'll have seen me do this before, I chucked this up on a lathe and I took the outside down. So now this outside will just basically slips right in like that. And so now I'm going to be able to get the right shim stack, put shims in here, put it all together, make sure that it still turns, make sure that everything's okay. If it's too loose, put more shims. If it's too tight, put less shims, and then start to make sure that I have the right level of shims and the right preload on these bearings. After I do that, I will take the new one, which is right there, and I will put the right shims under there, and I'll press that in, and we should be okay. So I rarely use white lithium grease, but I do use white lithium grease on these bearings. So I pressed new bearings on, I put the front gear on, I've greased the front gear, got the pin in the right area, okay? Did all that, press that in, put the new rear bearing on, everything's good. I shimmed up the cup for the rear bearing, so it has a little bit of preload on it, should have a little bit of preload. So I did all that, and now I've greased this. So what I normally do here is I'm gonna put it in, I'm gonna turn it, I'm gonna get it going, and then I'll take it out and I'll probably put a little, see where all the grease went. If any went on the outside, I'm gonna wipe it off. And then I'll add maybe a little more grease here in the front, and then poke it back in, and same thing here. And just make sure that I have it full of grease. White lithium grease doesn't splash as much, so that's why I use white lithium grease for these bearings. Okay, now when you have this all together, you got your brushes in, you got your wires hooked up. Okay, this wire is coming from the brush, this wire is coming from one side of the coil, this one's coming from the other side of the coil. What you do is you hook your negative up. Okay, I ground it, I both ground it and I put it over here. And then you put the positive to it and you see if it motors. Now if this motors, and this motors in the right direction, in this case left, all right, that way, if it motors in the right direction, then you're all set up right. If it motors in the wrong direction, you swap these around. Okay, so let's just check this out. And then this is the final test to everything. There you go. And it motors in the right direction, that way, which is left, and that's it. This turns left, it's the left turning one, because this is for an R52, and that's that. So pretty much that's all ready. That side of this is all good. I'm gonna put it on the lathe a little bit, test it, but the fact is that's ready now. Just as a side note, you can actually test the armature the same way that I showed you in that video. So if you're not sure if your armature is bad or not, you can actually motor it the same way that I showed you here. And if it motors fine, great. Your armature is good, your field coil is good, everything's good. If it doesn't, obviously something's wrong. This is my test bench. It's on my small lathe here. So I'm going to show you how I have things set up. I have it set up where I have the wire coming out of the coil. This is a special coil specifically for electronic regulators, so it only has two wires. I have a wire here and a wire here, and they are connected to these sides. This is our positive brush coming out here as well and connecting here, as well as this wire which will go to the regulator in the end. Now, to create electricity from the generator, you basically just ground this wire. You ground the field side. That's all you have to do to create, to basically wake up the generator. Without this grounded, it will produce no electricity. So if you spin this, it's going to produce no electricity until you ground this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my negative side here, just put it up here, and what you'll also see is that I have two multimeters, one digital, one analog. I just like to check the both of them because if it's negative, if I'm turning this in the wrong direction, it'll show you negative over here. So I just like to verify that. Okay, and then I take my two hot leads and I connect, and I just hang them over here. And I do this to test the generator. So right now there's nothing. I'm going to start up the lathe and going backwards because this is a left turning D2A. Start it nice and slow. There you go. Okay, I have 0 over here, so I'm going to connect this, and you're going to be able to hear the lathe slow down. You hear that. You hear the lathe slow down. And so what you're going to see is, I'm going to put this over here, and you'll see it's about 14 volts coming out. So it's 14 volts coming out. You'll see it over here. And you also see the analog go. So it's 14.5 volts. So at this speed, I'm putting out 14.5 volts, which is actually quite good. Now this is about as fast as you're ever going to go, especially with an R52. Remember, this is half crank. This is a lot faster than normal. So what I normally do is I'm going to slow down the lathe, and then I will test it at various speeds and look for output. And then I'll hook up the electronic regulator and retest with my battery and everything else. So as you can see, here's my test bench. This is my lathe. I have this mounted up. Before you do anything, make sure that you have a positive and a negative going. Because if you start this up, this will blow out this regulator. Okay, you do not want to blow out this regulator. So you have a positive here and a negative here, and you make sure of that. You see I have 6.2 volts over there. You'll also note that I have a small draw. I have a very small light here. And I like to have a small draw always so I can watch the regulator as well as watch here and watch there. And then I'll add a larger draw with a headlight here. Okay, so 6.39. Let's fire up the lathe in the right direction. Okay, in the right direction. Make sure it's in the right direction. And you'll start seeing this right here, 7.0. Okay, and you can hear the lathe. Now to add more load to it. So I'm going to add the headlight to it. And you can hear the lathe slow down. And you see 6.5, back. 6.5, back. And that shows me that everything's working. And that's how I test my generator. That's how I test everything here. That's how I make sure everything's working together. And it's a good test bench. If you have a lathe, you can set this up. So I wanted to show you what I did here. I took a regulator that is typically made for the R50/2 to R69S, one that you can get anywhere. This is a ubiquitous regulator. 6 volt, obviously, right? And what I did was I cut the 2 ears off, because there's typically 2 ears, one here, cut them off very carefully. the top hole in this case, that the very long, I think it's a 4mm Phillips, took that out of the back of it. That lines up with this top hole. So put that in there. Then I also put easily, very carefully drilled and tapped another hole down here. And I drilled and tapped a hole here for the ground wire, because this is isolated from ground via this plate. So we want to make sure that this is grounded, okay? Because what happens is it shunts. So what happens here is this, is as it turns, this is your positive, as the regulator grounds this side, okay, it makes the voltage here, the voltage comes out here, and if it's too much, the regulator actually shunts the extra voltage off to ground. So if you don't have a really good ground on this regulator, you're going to blow it up. Okay, so you want to have a really good ground, and all the contacts very good, fits well under the cover. And again, you can buy these anywhere. So they're, you know, ubiquitous, they're out there, and pretty much this half of the MagDyno is now ready. I've tightened everything up, so everything's tight, everything's nice and tight. And I want to show you here, you see how these are sitting here? You have to actually make a dot so you can peen this over a little bit, and you can lock that. But you don't want to peen it over on this side where these guide pins are. Those are guide pins. So you want to stay away from them. So I'm going to peen this here, and I'm going to peen that there. And I'll show you how to do that. You take this. I'm taking a punch here. I'll go this way because it's a little bit easier. Okay, and you see I'm at an angle here like that, and I'm going to hit that. And bam, that's not going anywhere. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay, just like that. And that's not going anywhere. Okay, and that's peened over. Might give it another like that. Make sure everything's fine. And that's that. So those are peened, and you're all good. So on the bottom half, the first thing that I am going to do is I'm going to take this, and there's a big coal in here. And what you have to do is you have to turn it in the direction of the spring, and it will fall right out. Okay, so that's that coal that's over here. And I'm going to clean everything off. Okay, and this is a very good one to change. And then here, I'm going to do the same thing. I want to turn in the direction. You don't want to open it up. You don't want to open the spring up. You want to tighten the spring up. So you push it down like that, and there you go. So that coal goes right in there like that. Okay, so that's going to go in there, and that basically is giving you the contact between here and this plate. Okay, so that turns down here. That goes around here. Then you take this and you put this down like that. And I am just going to very, very easily screw this down. Okay, I'm not going to do a lot with that, just do it by hand. And so that's the first thing that I do. And then I am going to be changing rings. Okay, I always like to upgrade the rings. I like them because the older rings get worn out. Okay, and this is where you get differential timing. Because if you see here, there's a flat spot. So this goes around, this hit the flat spot, opens the points, and closes it. So as it goes around, it hits that flat spot. Well, a brand new one is very exact, and it's 100% opposite, 180. So I always like to put a new one on. Okay, so I'll be putting a new one on here. But before I do that, I like to check what the gap is here first with the old one. So right here I have the old ring mounted up, and it's supposed to be 0.3 millimeter gap, which is right around 12 thousandths. I've already done this, and this is a 14 thousand gap. Not horrible, but it does retard a little bit. So that's 14 thousandths. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this one off. Okay, take this, and you got to take it off easy. Just rock it out like that, and then put this one on. Okay, and just rock this guy in. Find it right there. There we go. And let's see what this is. Just for the wear. So here's a 12 thousandths I'm going to use. And a 12 thousandths is a smidge tight. Okay, a smidge tight. Let's try a 10 thousandths. Yeah, 10 thousandths is loose. So it's 11 or 12. So right away, you can see this is already better. This is already better. And see if I can get the maximum right there. 12 thousandths. Yeah, so that's already better. So that's good. It's going to change the timing a little bit, and we will check that out later. But that's how you check. So the fact that I'm already at 12 with the new ring makes me feel pretty good about this. I was thinking about changing the points. Honestly, I don't think I'm going to. You can, because you know, you can take a little bit of sandpaper and just lightly rub them in there, which is probably what I'll do to clean them up. So I'll likely leave that alone. But like I said, that's right a smidge. That's a tight 12, and that's what I want. So I'm going to leave this for now. I'm going to take the new ring off. Probably just do a little bit of sandpaper on those, just very, very lightly. A little wet and dry, 1, 2, like 1, 2, that's it. Both sides, 1, 2, that's it. Put it all back together, remeasure it, and that's likely how I'll leave it. And then we'll go through putting everything on. I'll be putting new coals into here, and we'll show that. I'll be putting new boots on as well, because these are cracked. So I'll show you all of that. But right now, I'm very happy with what that is. So I checked this, and the old one versus the new one, I printed up a degree wheel, put it on the front, put my Magneto tester, I'll show you how to use that in a second, up there. And the old one, sorry, the new one is a couple degrees advanced than the old one, which makes sense because there's some wear in here. So as this gets worn down, it'll retard a little bit. A couple degrees, nothing that I'm seriously worried about with an old ancient motorcycle. So that's where we are with this. So I tighten this down in here. Okay, remember this is a cone in here, male cone to female cone. So don't tighten it too much. Okay, be very careful with it. So that's fine. Put the outside on with the spring. That is actually what does your retard. Okay, so your spring there. And the way to really do that is you fit the inside collar in the outside, and you watch where the spring, and there's a spring pole, and there's a pole over here to stop it from going too far. Okay, there's a groove over here with a pin. So there's a pin over here and a pin over here, and you gotta get this pin in first. This is longer. Once the spring pin is in, you can spring it around and then push the whole thing down. Hence seating both pins at the same time. It's not so hard. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how to, when you're ready to do timing or anything with this. So here is your ground cap. That's really what it is. It basically just grounds the mag, and you know, so you can shut it off. Here is your Magneto tester. So you put the hot lead on the ground, on the wire coming out of here. You put the ground in there, and as you can see, the points are open right now. So if I turn this, I'm gonna do it this way. If I turn this, there you go. Open, closed. Open, closed. So there you go. So that's that. And there you go. Open, closed. And back this way. Open, closed. There you go. Okay. And so if you want to do any timing or any checking, and you have this device, which is a Magneto checker, and we can see here, if I turn it, it'll say it's closed, and then, where is it? Open, and it beeps, so you give it an audible as well as a light. So that's okay. Turn it off because it's annoying. And so this, the bottom of this is ready to go. I have a new cold, new brush, if you will, in there. I've cleaned up the points a little bit, just very, just 1, 2, that's it. Cleaned up the points, checked the timing, that, okay, you know, it's a couple degrees difference, it's a couple degrees advanced. I'm okay with that. And so next, we're gonna put this over here, and next we're gonna work on these. I want to take these apart. I don't like these dried out boots. We're gonna put some new boots on. And I'm probably going to put some new coals, some new brushes in there. I have them, I might as well use them. So that's what I'm going to do next. I do like how this twists on to the plug, so I'm going to leave that alone. But I'm just going to work on this end. I'm going to put new gaskets in just because I got them. And put it all back together, and then I'll show you how we test it. Again on these, on the springs, on the brushes, on the coals, you got to find out which way they tighten the spring and which way they loosen the spring. You do not want to turn it in the loose way because then you'll ruin the spring. You want to turn it in the tightened way, and then you can just basically screw it out. And you can do the same thing going in. As you're tightening, just screw it in. So that's what you want to see there. Okay. Next, we want to get a screwdriver that can go down in there and get the end of there, because basically it's a vampire tap. Okay. And unscrew it. And so that's that. Got that unscrewed. Is it unscrewed enough? Not yet. So keep unscrewing it here. There you go. So that's unscrewed enough. Okay, and as you can see, there's a pretty big hole there. And I'm going to put it right back into the same hole. So, and as you can also see, that is cracked, and that is done. So the next thing we're going to do is put one of these up there. Now, you see how much the difference that is? So on these are quite stiff, and they have a pretty good neck down right at the end. So what I like to do, and people will argue with me here, what I like to do is I just like to nip just the very end off of them. Okay? So that way they're just a little bit easier to put on, and quite honestly, they don't squeeze the wire as much. They still do, as you can see. You still have to push it up there. They're still pretty tight, but it's workable. Now we'll take this, put this back on. I like to line up the holes because I don't want to make a new hole, right? So start screwing this back in, and I just like to make sure, okay, I'm in that hole. That's good. Screw that all the way back in. Okay, make sure we're good there. Yeah, that's nice and tight. It's very tight. So now tighten this end a little bit more. That's it. Don't go too crazy. And just pretty much just slide these up right there. And that's that. So I put a new boot on there. Now I'm going to put new coals in. So go find my brushes, my coals. Here they are. Brand new. So take one out, and you'll see it has a big bottom on it. Okay, so you want that big bottom because you want that to seat on that screw we just screwed in there. And what you want to do is, this is an interesting one. You want to get it like that, and you want to start pushing it in. And you do that, and you screw it in like I said. If you do it right, you don't screw it up. I'd say 8 times out of 10, I don't screw it up. On camera, I'm likely to screw it up. So, gotta use your fingernails. Get in there. And as you'll see, it's not the easiest thing in the world. Let's grab another one. Maybe it's easier. Okay. Find the end. There it is. Start putting that in there. Yep. See that one in there? And then just give it a little turn. Make sure it's all the way down. And then press it. I like to press it all the way in. And there you go. There's how the coal seats. And I'll show you how I test that. The way that I test this is I use my meter and I put one end where the spark plug would go. And hold that. I'm going to take this end and I just gotta touch it, and you can see I have pretty good continuity. As you press it in and give it more spring pressure, you get better continuity. But I got pretty good continuity just like that. So I know that's good. Okay, so I have everything ready here. I've got brand new brushes, coals in. I've got two new nice gaskets to put on the end. I always put new gaskets on just because I always like to. So I've got new gaskets. There you go. Okay. There it is. So this is the left side. So put that in just like that. Put the screw in. And there goes that. I'd like to take this out at this point. Now remember, anytime you spin it from this time forward, it's going to get you. It will spark and it will get you. And I'll tell you that, and then I'll probably shock myself here. So, get you once in a while. I'm not going to tell you that I haven't been prone to it, but okay, got both of these in. Make them a little bit past snug. You don't want them uber tight, but you want them to make sure they seat fine. Okay, alrighty. Now we are going to test this out a little bit. So here is the MagDyno set up on the lathe. You see I got the spark plugs in it, and they are grounded to the table. I've got my battery hooked up because I don't want to hurt my regulator. Okay, I've got everything here, and I'm going to start up the dyno, and I'm just going to start very, very slowly. And you see the sparks right away. And I like to do this, so I like to break put everything in, all the brushes that I put in. I want to make sure that they're broken in correctly. I want to make sure there's nothing wrong. I've got 7 volts. That's fine. I'm going to take my light, and I'm going to hook that up. And I'm going to slow the lathe down. You can hear it. Alright. And I got really good sparks coming out. Hopefully you can see that. Really good sparks on both sides, which is great. And then what I can do is I can slow the lathe down really, really slow. And you'll see that I'm still sparking. That's like a Kickstarter sparking right there. And just let it run a little bit. It's already getting a little warm, believe it or not. So a little bit warm. And yeah, there you go. Very nice. These are old plugs, so it just goes to show that the plugs are not very consistent. Okay? But basically, here's a rebuilt MagDyno. I can take this. This does nothing. This is good. So, it's not going to show anything here. But yeah, that's it. It's a rebuilt MagDyno. And that's that. So I am done with this. So I just want to show you, I'll probably run this for 15-20 minutes, maybe. Get it so it's a little bit warm. And, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Okay, I wanted to show you how you test the magnets. So you have a north pole and a south pole. The north is always on top, south is always on the bottom. So you want to make sure the north is on top, south is on the bottom, always with these. So what I have here is I have a old school snap-on alternator current. If you get close, north pole, you see how it goes up. All right, south pole, pull it away, south pole, see how it goes up. Okay, so that's how you can tell north and south. So I'm going to put that down there. And I normally put like a piece of tape or something there. And all I'm doing is I'm looking to see, okay, if I put it at the end of this tape, where am I reading? Okay, and I'll bring it a little bit closer. I want to get close to 100. All right, let's try it again. So right to the end of the tape. Okay. Is right about 1 tick lower than 100. Let's try that again. Take it away. Bring it back. Right to the end of the tape. 1 tick left than less than 100. Now I know these have been recharged. So I know these right here have been recharged. So if I go this way, I should have the same on the south pole, which I do. Same on the south pole. Okay? So north and south here are equal. Here are some others that I'm pretty sure aren't good. Someone had marked them north and south. That's good. So let's go here. Bring it right up to the tape. Wow. That's only at 2 dots up. That's at 20. The other ones were 90 and 100. This is 25, maybe coming up to 30. Just move a little bit. Let's try the south pole, shall we? And it should be about the same, quite honestly. This one's 20, 25. All right, let's try this one. Now the problem here is somebody screwed this magnet up. So I have a friend who gave me this magnet, and when I first got it, I'm going, something's wrong. Somebody had put the north down here and the south up here. So whoever remagnetized this screwed it up. And that is wrong. North should always be on top of these magnets. So let's go like this again. So that's south pole. You can see it go that way. And this is 70. And north pole, it's about 70. So yeah, but the problem is that's been magnetized in the wrong direction. So I don't know if you can change the poles once you've done this. I'm not really sure. I'm not a master of magnetism. So I don't know that, but I do know these have been recently remagnetized. Those are mine, and those are the ones that I'm using. But this is an easy way to check them. Okay. Now, if you don't have a reference, like ones that have been remagnetized, you can check them side by side. But if you have spark that's not very good, many times it's because the magnets are not good. Now, or need a recharge, I should say. Now, the magnets only work on the Magneto side. The Dynamo needs no magnets at all. So these will not affect Dynamo performance. They do affect Magneto performance. So that's why you check, that's why you test, and that's that for testing magnets. And if you have to get them recharged, make sure, please, that the person goes north, south, not the other way. All right, please. North up top, south on the bottom, always.